Yeah, my name's Joe Leon Pressy. I'm a skateboarder.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So tell me, Joey, how did you get to know about South Bank?
I came to visit when I was about 13. A friend of mine's dad was driving up to look at the Christmas market, Covent Garden. So me and a friend of mine who just started skateboarding came for a visit and bumped into a guy who was outside Slam City Skates in Covent Garden. He'd arrived 2 hours early for work, so he took us for a skate through the city to here, and then our minds were blown, yeah, from that point.
So at that point you weren't living in London?
No, I'm from the New Forest, yeah.
Okay then. And so how long have you been skating here since then?
Well, I've moved to London 17 years ago. I've been coming here the whole time, yeah.
And have you skated kind of consistently through that, or have there been times where you skate more than other times?
Pretty much consistently, yeah.
If you could try and answer in full sentences, just because we're not going to be using her voice in the film. So just to kind of say, oh, I've been coming to London since, or...
Okay, do you want to start again then?
Yeah, if you could do
Cool.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the question and the answer.
Yeah.
So how did you hear about South Bank?
I heard about South Bank when I came for a visit with a friend of mine's dad who drove us up to check out the Christmas market at Covent Garden. And then we bumped into a guy who'd arrived 2 hours early for work at Slam City Skates, skate shop in Covent Garden. And he offered to take us to South Bank here. So he took us for a skate through the streets and we ended up here.
And so at that time you weren't living in London. How long have you been living in London and skating here?
I've been living in London for 17 years and skateboarding pretty much consistently.
And what is it about South Bank and the Undercroft that you particularly like?
Well, it's a nice spot by the river. What I like about South Bank is it's a nice spot by the river. And when we first started coming here, it was really quiet. There was nowhere near as many people as there are now. So it was a place that was peaceful and there was lots of open space and we could just practice skateboarding, learn tricks and meet new people and feel that community sense, yeah.
So describe to me what your kind of skate is like. So I'm not a skater, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
You arrive, how does your daily skate go, if there is a daily skate?
Well, I would just arrive here because I only live 10 minutes down the road. So I pretty much use it like a gym. I just come and have a roll around, break a sweat, have some fun, see who's around.
Do you come on your own and meet people, or do you come with people?
Yeah, I pretty much come by myself or with my dog, yeah.
And what is it, if we look at the Undercroft there behind you, which elements of it do you particularly like or particularly meaningful to you?
Well, the elements of the Undercroft that are meaningful to me in the first instance was the things that I saw in magazines, because we were just kids then, and when we got hold of skateboarding magazines, which were quite difficult to get, and then there was these beautiful photographs that were shot with a fisheye lens, so all the dimensions were kind of warped, so places like this just look incredible in that format. So we'd look at that and study the photographs, and so yeah, various places, particularly the bit with the drainage bit at the bottom there. Yeah, there was some really amazing pictures that we saw down there.
Had you seen it in magazines before you saw it in life?
Yes.
And how did you get those magazines?
It's just like the occasional newsagent would stock them, like maybe in a skate shop, or friends would have them. Yeah.
Really interesting. And then thinking about over the years, how has the spot physically changed from when you began skating to now?
Well, like I said, when I first came, there was a lot more space. Since then, it's been shrunk pretty much in half. So it really lost the natural feeling that it had, because it was open on the other side too, so you could walk through here and then it would open up, yeah.
So did it used to feel in the past far more kind of integrated with the people around and less enclosed as it is now?
In the past, it just felt like a part of this whole walkway and the surrounding area. Yeah, it wasn't like a focused feature, you know, with a railing, and so it wouldn't get called a skate park
Yeah.
back then,
So
really.
the railing that came how many years ago?
I guess now I'm thinking 8, so probably 10.
And do you think the railing makes people watch you more? Do you feel more like you're performing to an audience with the railing?
Yeah, the railing has really encouraged people to sort of have a little rest. And then I guess it's changed people's perception that maybe they feel that it's something that's been created for skateboarding rather than the reverse, which is true. The skateboarders actually made it their own.
Yeah. And do you think, does that change the way you feel about the Undercroft or not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
In what way?
The way that the barrier has changed the way I view this area is because when the people that organised this whole area first shrank it, they didn't really inform the skateboarders. You know, there was no respect in the communication. So the way that we viewed the barrier when it was put in was kind of divide and conquer sort of thing. You know, it's like they wanted it to be separate. They wanted it to be a skate park and something that fits in a certain diameter. Because we used to skate all the way, all over here on this stuff next to the river, this nice curbs and things like that. So yeah, it was
Would it be
free.
safe to say you felt that you were kind of divided from being public to being skaters with the public out?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, so there was a period of time where the South Bank took some steps that you could perhaps see as trying to discourage skating in the Undercroft.
Yes.
Could you tell me a bit about what those steps are and how that made you feel, what your response to
What the South Bank Centre would do, for instance, would be to scatter gravel on the floor.
Can you just explain for me who doesn't know about skating why that matters?
Well, when we're rolling, the reason that gravel would disrupt skateboarding is that the wheels on the skateboard are 5.5 centimetres diameter, and then the trucks, which is the metal bit, which holds them together and attached to the board, there's only sort of 2 centimetres clearance. So if you're rolling along and you hit a piece of gravel, it makes an awful noise for a start, and you just fall. Yeah, so that was disruptive.
And were there other measures like the gravel?
The gravel was the main thing I remember, yeah.
What about things like with the lighting, for example?
Yeah, the lights have been sort of half on for long periods of time.
And what
Yeah.
impact does that have on skating?
Well, you can't really see what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah, and does that have any other knock-on? So for example, would it make that area feel more dangerous perhaps?
Yeah, it could do, yeah, it could feel a bit dingy without the
Yeah.
lights on, yeah.
And do you think that makes a difference to how people who are standing at the barrier looking in feel about you?
Yeah, absolutely.
In what way?
I guess it makes them perceive it as something that is dingy and perhaps, you know, not positive.
Okay.
If you could just put that into one sentence, just like, you know, when the lights were low or dark, it made it blah, blah, blah.
So when the lights have been half on or low or dark, then I feel that the people that are along the barrier looking in at us are thinking, oh, perhaps this isn't such a positive thing, you know, if it's looking really dingy.
So you think it positions you in a certain way?
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. Could you tell me a bit about your involvement in the Long Live South Bank campaign? How did you get involved? What did you do?
Yeah, well, my involvement in the Long Live South Bank campaign really began with friends that would come to my house to meet up, have a cup of tea and go skateboarding. The word was spreading around that the South Bank Centre wanted to turn this into shops and restaurants. So pretty much the whole scene were quite frustrated and anxious about that happening. So just everybody got their heads together, really. We tried to create solutions to the problem. We tried to start a conversation with the South Bank Centre. There was a split that happened. There was some meetings that were laid on by the South Bank Centre that we went to. Certain members of our community were really against the way that we were being treated in the meetings.
And how were you?
Yeah, being divided into different rooms and having big screens with presentations and these grandiose plans for alternatives. But then there's real issues to people that come here every day and that skateboard every day that weren't being addressed. So it felt like there was a lack of respect, you know, and treating us as people with creative power and imagination.
So do you think that the meetings were more about them telling you what they had to say, or was there a genuine opportunity for you to tell them what you wanted?
Yeah. I feel that the meetings were really, it was what they were offering us rather than an on a level conversation. Yeah.
And I'm really interested, you say they split you into different rooms.
Yeah.
How did they split you? How?
They split us into different rooms essentially so that we weren't all one big group together. So because pretty much we're so closely knit as a community and such good friends that we share the opinion. You know, it won't take us long to come to a unanimous decision about something.
So do you think that the South Bank Centre heard what you want to say? Do you think at any point in the process there's a point where they've recognised what it is that you have to say and respected it?
I think the South Bank Centre had a problem understanding the values of skateboarders. So they weren't addressing us as artists who are vulnerable, creative people who have you know, been through a lot of struggle to get to the point where we got to. You know, they were seemingly of the older mentality that we were like delinquents or, you know, a problem.
So here we're on the South Bank, we've got the National Gallery, we've got the
Yes.
National Theatres. Do you clearly see yourself as part of that artistic, creative?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think they now see you as that, or do you think not yet?
I think they're learning how to perceive it as, to perceive us as being artists, yeah.
Yeah. So when you look to the future, what would you hope for the Undercroft?
Well, I'd hope that it would stay here. For the future, I would hope that the Undercroft can stay here so that people can take the journey that I've taken. Because when we first started this interview, you asked what my occupation was, and I told you skateboarder, but really now I consider myself to be an artist because skateboarding has taken me to a point where I have suffered enough pain to be able to be brave enough to call myself an artist. So I would really hope for the future that kids that use this area could have a chance to experience the same path.
Fantastic. Would you see yourself as a campaigner as well as an artist?
Yeah.
Primarily an artist?
Yeah, I just say artists, anarchists.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right.
I've just got one thing to ask. If you could sum up South Bank in 2 words, what would those 2 words be?
Right, okay. If I could sum up South Bank in 2 words, it would probably be get rad.
Get rad. Can I ask you one more question? Am I right in thinking the table used to be stored in your house?
Yes, the table was stored at my house whilst we were doing the campaign for the first 3 months, and then I guess there was some months in the middle where we had a philanthropist help us out, and we had an office to really get some momentum behind the campaign. And then for the last 6 months, it was wheeled out from my house every day. Yes.
Did you sit at the table?
Yeah, I sat at the table a couple of days a week.
How did members of the public come to the table? Was it like a gateway into the Undercroft, or how did the table work? How did it?
The table really functioned as a bridge between us and the public. Yes.
So in some ways the barrier is separating the public and the skaters, and
Yes.
the table acted as a doorway from the skaters to the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you say that for the
I feel the table acted as a doorway between.
your version of it, not my
Do you want to ask the question again so I can
Yeah, so
remember?
how do you feel the table functions?
I feel the table functioned really as a doorway between the realm of the skateboarder and the general public. So the skateboarder that perhaps has irrational superiority, maybe because of being the wounding of being abused growing up, doing something that's not really fitting in with the status quo. And then so that doorway opens to the public as well, which really have a kind of conditioned view of what a skateboarder is according to media and corporations. So yeah, there was the views of the two groups were able to be shared.
And do you think when members of the public talk to you at the table, they change their mind?
Yeah, we changed a lot of people's minds when they came up to the table and had a chat with us, yeah.
Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions, Winston?
Yeah.
Is there anything that was where you sort of in the theme or something, or Pollyanna might have in the theme that we need to ask again and do it as a statement?
Not really. I mean, maybe it's just a bit more about like the. Because I know you talked about the table and everything like that, but it's kind of it seems like your house played a big role to supporting the Long Live South Bank campaign.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to get a little bit more context of like how that happened, how it affected your life, literally, because people were around.
I can tell the whole story if you like, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, maybe because it was so grassroots, it's really like, important that it wasn't in a big large building like that. It was just in your house. And
Yeah.
on the table.
Okay.
Yeah. So what role did you and where you lived play in the Long Live South Bank?
Well, our house has been involved in the skateboard scene for about 10 years now. So in the beginning, we were all skateboarding a lot and partying a lot, and we had a friend who had a soft spot for us. I think she believed in what we were doing, and she would let us crash on the couch at her house, and then gradually she rented us rooms, and then she eventually bought a place and then gave the place to us, and so we ended up with this place which me and 3 of my other skateboarder friends live at, which we nicknamed the Palace, ironically, because actually it's quite glamorous squalor was how we described the way we were living then. It's a bit nicer these days, but yeah, so basically, you know, Palace Skateboards, a company, was formed by Lev, my flatmate who lives there, and then we've been able to have a place for everyone to meet up and hang out and decide where we're going skateboarding. So that was the thing that was quite funny whilst the campaign was going on, the way that it was being expressed by the opposition, that we were super organised and you know, had all these resources, when the truth of the matter was that we were just wheeling out the table from my flat, which is around the corner in Waterloo.
Did it ever have a downside? Did it take over your life?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It really took its toll on me psychologically during the last 6 months, because as time goes on, things evolve. So our house ended up being that there's people that are living there who aren't really skateboarding every day. So had to delicately negotiate with people so that there could be a mutual understanding about why there would be some skate rats turning up at the door every morning and collecting the boxes and the bits and bobs for the table.
So you talk about the whole kind of process really positively, and it's a really amazing success story, and you talk about how you feel like an artist now, but you also talk about how it's taken suffering. You talked about having a wound earlier on. So there's been quite a cost to doing this as well as a benefit.
Yeah. Well, the reason that I mentioned the wound was because growing up, like I said before, people don't really understand what we're doing. So when we're skateboarding through Liverpool Street and there's people that have been working hard in an office all day and they want to vent, you know, they want to take it out on somebody. So we've really been absorbing that for a long time. But I feel that we've had the strength to be able to do that because where we grew up in skateboarding comes from a place of very pure, unconditional love, where there's no ageism, there's no racism, anything like that. So it's been a safe place for misfits to be able to come together and express. And there's I feel, a threshold with skateboarding to where it can become a transcendental experience. And so now the reason I can describe myself as an artist is because growing up skateboarding and continuing skateboarding for 20 years and perceiving that pain, but carrying on and regardless, and then gradually that pain turning into something that's very valuable in honest self-expression.
So the campaign to save the Undercroft was as much, would you say, a campaign about having your identity as a skater recognised by other people and respected, as it was about a physical space?
Yeah, I feel that the Long Live South Bank campaign has been symbolic of the wider understanding of skateboarding by everyone.
Right. Really interesting. So about the material space and a symbolic.
Yeah.
Really
I only have a question for me. You know, we said we talk about skate stoppers and stuff like that. I mean, because as you mentioned, places like Liverpool Street and whatnot, you know,
Yeah.
done all those things. So just give us a little kind of overview, a little bit about
Okay.
the city and what it does to stop skating.
Okay.
And the fact that they tried it here as well.
Yeah.
Before, you know, they were going to move it and all this stuff.
Okay. So for us as a skateboard community, what we find hilarious about what the city does to combat this nuisance is that they completely ruin the line of this really beautiful architecture that they spend millions of pounds on by putting little metal devices all along, so that there's no possibility of that free expression of skateboarding happening on the architecture. So yeah, we often have a laugh about that.
So it feels like the space is sometimes used against you.
Yeah,
Yeah, almost like a weapon.
yes,
But
like
just-
hostile.
Yeah,
Mm.
hostile. So the environment that you have made habitable for yourself is used in a hostile way against you.
Yeah, and that happens in various locations around the city. So there'll be a nice place that is lends to the act of skateboarding. So the skateboarders will congregate there. Perhaps there'll be some wax put onto the candle wax put onto the ledges to make them work. You know, excuse me, and some people, you know, hanging around skateboarding. But according to the city, that is a nuisance.
So the kind of the tension, the conflict here is actually mirrored all over the city and all over the country.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, the tension is mirrored, country and worldwide.